Hello and welcome. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like. If you like what I'm going to be talking about, like the video. If you want to subscribe to my channel to learn more about mediumship and spiritual power and everything like that, which I'll be doing in this video, I really hope that you enjoy it and feel free to subscribe. It's great to talk about spiritual power because spiritual power is something that we all have access to. Every single human being has the ability to connect to a divine power, to a power that is around us. It's a living energy that all things are connected. And quantum physics has done a lot of studies on an energy that connects all things, a divine energy, a divine power. The only thing is with spiritual power is it is a part of the ascension process of our spiritual selves. And that ascension process is what we call, when we're doing sitting in meditation, and you sit in meditation and you connect to the essence and spirit of who you are, and you become in a sort of oneness. And when you're in that space and you're connected to your own soul and spirit, you're also connected to all things. Now, the only thing that to get in contact with spiritual power, there are things that are in the way, because in real thing is a lot of us think that we know what we're doing and we are the mind, but we're not the mind. Gurus have a knowledge of this in this lifetime, and the gurus from India, they sat in meditation for years and years, and they reached a sort of an enlightenment because they had an understanding of the energy and harnessed the energy of their soul and spirit and connected it to that power and divine energy that surrounds all things. So we are not the mind, we are the spirit, we are the soul. Our consciousness is totally different to our mind. Our consciousness is the observer of the mind. Now, if we were to observe our mind and observe our thoughts right now, and just to sit in consciousness in the seat of the soul and just observe our mind, we certainly would notice that the mind would go quiet. For we are not the mind, and we are not the body. We are physical, but the consciousness, we're like the avatar that entered this body in a spirit and soul that is the essence of spirituality that emanates through our whole being all the time. And so when we actually either sit in meditation or sit in the power, we have a chance to access that consciousness that connects to the energy and power within ourselves, but also connect to an energy that connects to all things. Now, some people would call that prana energy. You can breathe in that light, and there are special techniques you can do in yoga that the gurus have passed down from generation to generation. You breathe in that light, you become that light, but it's there, it's accessible to anybody. And that's the truth. It's a case of doing a practice, whether it's meditation, whether it's sitting in the power, whatever you do, it's connecting into a spiritual energy. And that spiritual energy begins within you, and that is on the frequency of love. And that frequency of love is 528 hertz. It can go higher than that if you get to joy, and you get to even higher frequencies, but really it begins on that frequency of love. So if you're sitting in that frequency of love, and you're sitting in that frequency of light within you, it activates your body, your cells. It can bring healing, and it can certainly change your consciousness. And when your consciousness changes and you realize that you are not just this physical body, but you are also in connection with a divine energy that surrounds all things. When we go through the power exercise that I've put on YouTube for 25 minutes, it's the experience of the power that you have within inside of your body. Then it's experienced the power and energy that's inside of your aura. And then it's connecting it to that divine universal energy, that power of all things, that divine consciousness that connects all things. And once you connect to that, it's a different vibration. Now, that vibration is what I call the spiritual power. For it's not just for the developing of mediumship, it's also for the developing of your spirituality and your spiritual self. For the arising of the soul rises up, and we realize that when the soul rises, that we're intuitive, that we're sensitive, that we can maybe read people better than we could before. We become aware. The awareness grows. As awareness grows, the spirituality grows. So when you are sitting in a spiritual power and you are connecting to this divine energy, you are shifting your frequency to that energy. Now, some people might say, wow, this might be too much. Some people say, whoa, this could be too much. It's like having 4 cappuccinos and feeling the anxiety. But really, at those moments, we are shifting ourselves. We're shifting through consciousness. Our mind may feel that it's like letting go of the old, and they're like, oh, maybe it's like moving into another frequency. And the mind can get at some points, it can feel anxious about this shift. But when we do a practice every day and we sit what I call is in the seat of the spirit and the soul, and we sit in that point of consciousness, and we're observing our mind, we're observing our body, we're observing our feelings, and we're observing life. And when you're sitting in that part of meditation, because truth be told, everything that is within you is within the divine consciousness. Everything that is within you is within the divine universe. So the divine universe, they've even measured in science that all the elements of the universe are measured within inside of our bodies. So we are a part of the universe. They've measured that under microscopes, and they've found that there are parts of the universe within us. So when I say we are within as without, or we are out but we are in, our consciousness can be within inside of ourselves, but it can be outside in the aura, and it can also be in the consciousness of all things. And that is shifting consciousness. Sitting in the power is what we do to shift consciousness. And when you do that, and you do that many, many times on the frequency of love, 528 hertz, you'll find that really illuminates your spirit and soul. And illuminating that spirit and soul is something that I know that the spirit communicators and the spirit world can see. So when we shift our frequency, it's easier to connect to spirit. It's easier to connect to guidance. And in this way, because we're raising our frequency, we're connecting to guidance, and we are feeling the guidance, and we're getting more into the flow. So we're not our mind. We are our spirit, and we are our soul. But imagine a spirit and soul that is confined by the limitations of a body that is temporary. And our spirit and soul is just confined by this emotion, is confined by an organ which they call the brain. And that's where our ego is. And that's something that's a part of us as well. But when we are in that spirit and soul, we are touching the infinite. And when we are touching the infinite self connected to all things, because if all things are energy and we are connected to all things, and they can find within inside of our bodies under a microscope that the whole universe is in us as we are outside of it, there are parts of it within inside of us, then it's no wonder that when we shift consciousness, we can really shift into a consciousness of understanding that is far bigger than ourselves. When we ask our mind, and this is a good question, when we ask our mind, can you understand what infinite is? And the mind will say something like, well, it's bigger than what I can actually compute, because the mind computes. But when we sit in a spiritual power and we sit in the spiritual consciousness, and then we connect to all things like we do in the meditation, then we become the oneness of the divine. And many people that are on this spiritual pathway, they are looking for answers, they are looking for truths, they are looking for something that will give them answers. And sometimes you try to read it in spiritual books, and sometimes you go to these courses, and really when you sit in the energy and the power and you connect to the divine, all things, the universal consciousness, and you connect to it and you experience it, that's where you might make up your mind that you've met a divine consciousness that some people might call God, or some people, because God is an infinite energy that connects all things, and a divine energy is something that really connects. So I'm really happy that I've just got to say, someone's just said, it's really good to join in here. I got a notification this time. If you want to click your bells to get notifications, please do, because then you'll know when I'm going live, and you'll know when it's. But a spiritual power that we can all access is inside of ourselves. And if we were to bring one belief to the world, one belief to this whole humanity, it would be believe in yourself, believe in the infinite spirit and soul of who you are, and know that it's already connected to all things. The only thing that we do when we're sitting in the power is to remember that we are already connected. And when we remember that we are already connected and we experience that, then the frequency of us goes up, and then the enlightenment moments come, or the eureka moments, where you think, I suddenly feel inspired. I suddenly feel I understand. I've suddenly got the bigger picture. Those moments get bigger the more that you sit in the power, the more that you sit in a spiritual power. And when I first started sitting in the power years ago, I was searching just like everyone else, searching for answers. But after all the years of sitting in the power, it's not become a thing where I think I might know that God exists or a divine energy exists, because it becomes a knowing. Because sitting there, connecting so many times, the knowing that there is an infinite energy that connects every time. And that is on the frequency of love every time. Well, unconditional love, which is even higher. I'm just reading. So it says, sitting in the power is a good exercise. Reluctant materialists like myself have set the intention despite struggling to believe. And when you think about it, the physical life that we live in, we measure it in mental things that we've put together. This is how we measure self-worth. And to measure self-worth in your life, maybe to say like, well, I'm just measuring this because then this would be right and that. But the power, when you sit in your power and you sit in the power of who you are and you connect to it, you become more wealthy than you can ever imagine. And that's the truth. So I do most of my videos live. So if you're enjoying my videos, please give them a like. And if you really want to subscribe to my channel, feel free to do so. For everything I put on this channel is through questions and answers about mediumship and spirituality, what people need to know. I give real answers, down to earth answers, as much as I can be down to earth. And then people can understand where they're at in their ascension process, where they're at in their spirituality, and where they're at. Because when the soul rises, when we're sitting in the power, it is an ascension process, and it can feel energyful. You can feel energy around your head. Some people experience heat, emanating out of their body. Some people think they're having hot flushes when they're too young to have hot flushes, or even people having hot flushes when they thought I'd be done with all of that. But you can feel the energy and heat rising. Now there is something that takes place energetically when we do sit in the power, and it has an effect not only on our bodies, but it has an effect on our consciousness, our mind, and we become more aware of more things. And that's something that sitting in the spiritual power does. So it's knowing that your infinite self already knows this. How many times have you read a spiritual book and you think, I know this. I don't know how I know this, but I know this. It's because the soul and spirit already knows. When we sit in consciousness of that spirit and soul, which is connected to all things, then we understand not only ourselves, but to understand ourselves and our true nature and our higher selves in this spiritual power. It's really understanding that we can't measure the infinite. For truth be told, we are the divine self watching us in action within this lifetime. One time I was doing the garden and I needed some energy, so all I did was connect to my power and connect to the divine self and connect to that divine energy. And I felt that it was the energy and consciousness that was doing the work. And when it was the energy and consciousness that was doing the work, the garden got done in no time. So it shows you that when you connect in, there is an infinite, like even opening the heart to the frequency of 528. When you open your heart, you open yourself to an infinite energy, and that infinite energy that we can all access. And it's just a case of breathing and opening it up. So I hope you can use your breath to do that. I've got a few people writing, so I'm just going to check when I throw myself off readings, and when I get yes, I have an instant interference instead of reading getting stronger and going good or better. So good for you. I felt an overwhelming feeling of love on a few occasions sitting in the power, but I want to feel that more often. It's because something that I crave. Any suggestions on how to obtain it? To obtain that feeling of love, because it's like unconditional love. To obtain it is to remember it. So when you go and sit again in the power or in meditation, you want to access that unconditional love, you just remember what it felt like. And when you sit to return to that consciousness. Now, the great masters of the past knew this, so when they would go into meditation, they could go really quickly into meditation because they use the remembering of the consciousness to bring them back to it. And I know in shamanic practices that they use that as well, remembering that place of consciousness brought them back to those moments of realization. So when you can do that, it brings you right back. So just remember that you can access that at any time, and that's how you can obtain it, is to remember it, go sit for it, and it will come again. But remember, it's a process. It may be really strong the first time, it may be less strong the next time, but then what it is, it's like the spiritual journey is holding a carrot in front of you, and you're walking along trying to, like the donkey running after the carrot. And so it becomes the journey. And the journey will be to obtain that, and to obtain that unconditional love when you're sitting there. So I see someone said that is happening all the time. Thanks for the 25-minute sitting in the power. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, I can see the questions. Yes, agreed. Yes, I'm trying to bring what I learn and feel in sitting the power in my life, especially being less critical about others. You see, what happens at being less critical about others when we're sitting in the spiritual power, and it's like not only sitting in the power, it's like going through life in that power and essence. When you start your day off in that power and essence, and you have to work with people, you become less forgiving when you are in the power. For in truth, all things that happen within your lifetime can be seen as a gift, or they can be seen as a problem. And when you are from that divine energy and spiritual power that you've created, you're not tired, you're energized, and you've got the overview, and you accept people more for who they are. So then you become less critical. For the things that you see in others are the things that you probably would recognize about yourself. The most critical people that are critical about others are most critical about themselves. And then it's like, that's something that we've learned in life. And when we sit in the power and the essence of the energy, and you really sit in it and you feel it, we become the oneness. And when you become the oneness, that oneness is where we're at. And then you see the overview. And when you see the overview, that overview really opens up to many, many possibilities of spirituality and unfoldments of your gifts. And that sensitizes you and opens you up. So I see there's a bit of a conversation here, but that unconditional love, that helps. But to actually get it more frequently is to go sit for it and remember it. So whenever you sit in the power meditation for 25 minutes, and whenever you feel that you would like to experience it for yourself, I've been doing it now for many years, and the experience I've had is consciousness changes. You end up having more of the eagle's eye overview about life. And yes, you see what's going on in the world, but you know from out the essence of who you are and the essence of the connection to all things that everything is in momentum, just like the universe is in momentum. And we go through these changes and planets that are moving around the universe, and they never collide. For there's always an intelligence that moves all things within this universe. Our minds cannot comprehend all the amount of energy and light and universal consciousness that moves this galaxy, moves this universe. And because our mind can't comprehend it, does not mean that it does not exist. So we only have the limitations of our mind. So if you'd like to move back into that frequency of unconditional love when sitting in the power, just remember, go back to it. Go back to it. So this has been a great chat to you guys. It's been a great talk about the spiritual power. If you would like to, feel free to join my channel, please do. I've got a join button for people that would like to become a member. And if you'd like to become a member, that's really good. It supports me to do this work. And that's what I like to do, to get real questions, real answers out there, what people are looking for. Spiritual power, guys. I wish you a fantastic day. Take care, and until the next time, and remember, you're an infinite soul that's indestructible, and you'll never die. Thank you.